Hey everybody, Mark over here at Twanger's Turntable, back for just a quick video, and I'm going to do a little bit of cheating and try and combine three letters into one video. What I'm talking about here, for those that are uninformed, a thread that Jacob, our buddy over there in Denmark, started over at KRI, Jacob's music channel. If you've not been over there, go check them out. I don't know if you can see that. My end here, it's not showing up very well, but yeah, Jacob's always a great supporter of everybody in the vinyl community and YouTube in general. So this is an alphabet thread he started a while back. I've been a little bit behind, and in fact being called out a little bit there. I watched a video by my buddy Jason, Low Noise Jason Skills, over at his channel there, called me out when he was doing his M's, because the last one I did is H's. So like I say, I'm going to just try and throw a few together here, and yeah, try and catch up a little bit. I'm not going to catch up entirely, but I'll present the I, J's, and K's here today. And I've just pulled three from each letter and try and keep it relatively short, but maybe make up some lost ground. It's been really busy. It sounds like a broken record, but that's just the way it is this time of year. And in fact, has been for the past several months since our move. It's really busy, which is a good thing. It's not a complaint. It's just a reality of life right now. So let's get back to what we enjoy doing here. Certainly what I enjoy. I hope you will enjoy it too. And I'm going to start off by my favorite band. And this has changed over the years. And also I'll add, these are in no way presentations of necessarily my favorite album by these artists. I just grabbed the ones. This first one I grabbed because it does happen to be their biggest selling album, and it's not even close. I mean, the runner-up would be the one that followed this, but this is still far and beyond their best seller. And probably around the time where I think they were really coming in there. Anyway, I'm going off a little bit too much. I was going to say they're coming into their own, but I would suggest, depending on when you jump on the fandom wagon, that would be subjective, of course. Some fans like their later catalog. I prefer their early catalog, and I'm talking about Iron Maiden, if you hadn't guessed already. Their third album, this introduced, of course. These have probably been presented ad nauseum, and I myself have presented it oftentimes, just because, as I alluded to, my favorite band. And this is a repress, a reissue. Yeah, introduce Bruce Dickinson on vocals, but the last album with Clive Burr. Both Clive and Nico have attributes that I really love, and are two of my favorite drummers. It's often said, I guess, in drummer speak, there's just something about Clive's groove and his handwork. But Nico, of course, I think his footwork is almost unparalleled. He's never used a double bass, to my knowledge. I mean, I have to be quite transparent, and I don't follow closely the news or the goings, the comings and goings of this artist, even though they are my favorite. It's been a long time since I've done any of that. I just listen to the music. It's the music that matters to me. What's happening in the artist's life or their world is really insignificant to me, other than what they're producing and putting down on record. So this would be my first one to represent the letter I, and no better way than Iron Maiden. So with presenting something out of the realm of heavy metal, some would suggest by today's standards, maybe hard rock. But to me, if it's been heavy metal my whole life, it's always going to be. And that's just one example. Switch things up. This band out of Scotland here, I can't say I'm a huge fan. And in fact, I don't have anything else out of their catalog. But I just remember, and I've said this ad nauseum as well to those who have watched, the drums are usually what speaks to me. And I just remember when I heard this, it just really grabbed me. And that was the component of it that really grabbed me. And this band out of Scotland, this is the Canadian cover for the Icicle Works. And A Whisper to a Scream, Birds Fly, is the one song I'm talking about on here. And in fact, this is one of the few albums I purchased because of that song, hearing that song. And the rest of the album, I can take it or leave it. I mean, it's good. I like it. I listen to the whole thing when I put an album on. That's typically how I listen. Um, I don't typically skip over tracks, even if it's one that I don't find all that, moving or really, or really great. That's just the way I listen to records. It's an entire experience from side A to the end of side B. So the Icicle Works will be the second one in that letter, and that one I think was 84. I'm going to say I got to put my cheaters on to know for sure because not a huge 1984. This came out on Beggar's Banquet, subsidiary of Vertigo Records, I guess. But yeah, it's good shape. I picked that one up quite a while ago, to be honest. But I purchased it just on the basis of that song. I really like that. I really dig it. Coming up here north of the border or wherever you happen to be, maybe the other side of the pond, Canadian band here, Idolize. I think they were out of Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken. Probably not all that well known globally. I wonder if there's anything on here that would stand out to anyone. I know they had a song on here that was probably a minor hit. Tokyo Rose, of course, that's the one. Lead vocals, Tad Campbell. Guitar, Glenn Smith. Bass, Miles Fox Hill. Drums, Phil Robertson. Keyboards, John Webster. Recorded at Ocean Sound, Vancouver, where many albums were recorded back in the 80s. This one would have been 1984. Tokyo Rose, your typical top 40 tune, I would suggest. And I don't know if anything else on this album would stand out, but that's the third entry for my I's in the alphabet. And next up, of course, J. And another one of my favorite bands of all time. And this would certainly probably be my favorite album by this act. And that's only been over the last decade or maybe two where this one has really pulled to the top of the heap for me. And that might have something to do with a lot of their discography that came out after, well, I might as well just say it, after Defenders of the Faith. It kind of really dropped off for me. I mean, I do appreciate the stuff they did after. Turbo has grown on me. Firepower was really good when I heard that, and I like the work that KK Downing is doing with KK's Priest. Stuff like that. But for the most part, most of it I can give a hard pass to. I can listen to it, but nothing like their output from specifically the 70s. But yet what got me into them was Screaming for Vengeance in 82. That really elevated Judas Priest to the top of the heap for me, or close to the top. I was into a lot of metal then. That was my primary, my genre of choice, if you will. I've mentioned it before. I think genres are kind of stupid today, but certainly my favorite is no question Stained Class. I like all their 70s output and most of their 80s stuff. And like I said, even Turbo has grown on me where I can appreciate it, but certainly wouldn't be anywhere near, probably wouldn't even make my top 10. Well, maybe. No, probably not. But I just not a big fan of that synth sound. Kind of the same thing would happen with Maiden for me, is when it started to drop off for me. But yeah, this is just a killer record. I'm not going to go off on all the tracks. If you've not heard it and you're not into Priest, this would be one of the records where I would suggest checking them out. I just think that it never got much better than this. But it's a fine line. When I say that, I have to make it clear. The margin between what I think is their best and even their least is probably so marginal. It's almost not worth talking about, because I like all their stuff. I mean, I do like the other stuff I alluded to. This just happens to be my favorite. And this was a reissue as well that I picked up several years ago. But I mean, wow, it's as they say, it's a cracker. I mean, just killer. There is no filler on that album. Next up for the Jays, According to the band, and or maybe not the band at all, but the record label, this is their worst album. And as I alluded to, what I present here has got no reflection of how I feel about it as far as worst, favorite to least favorite. Even though I just said some of the records I show are my favorite, but not necessarily the case. And this is tongue in cheek. I'm really just kidding. It's because it's the title of the album, The Worst of Jefferson Airplane. And it's really the only thing I have from this band, so that's why I'm showing it. It starts with J, Jefferson Airplane, and I think it's got the tunes that most people would be familiar with on here. It's got the White Rabbit. What else? Yeah, that's the big one. Somebody to Love, right? It's a good listen. I mean, for the casual fan, I'm not a huge Jefferson Airplane um, fan. Certainly, I would rule out anything by personally Jefferson Starship when all that took place. It's not the same to me. This is a really good listen, though. If you not heard them, that'd be a good way to check them out. Next up, something maybe an obscure alternative. Well, that's what the record says. Japan, obscure alternatives. So I had not really had this in my collection until 3 or 4 years ago. I came across it, and I do remember hearing because I did a lot of music in my school and whatnot, and dances, DJing, and so some of this stuff when I listened to years later, it's like, yeah, I remember that tune, and I'm not sure what the track was on here. But the tracks are Sometimes I Feel So Low, Automatic Gun, Rhodesia, Love is Infectious, Obscure Alternatives, Deviation, Suburban Berlin, and The Tenant. And yeah, it's a good listen. I mean, it's that kind of that new wave sound. This would be 1982-ish, I believe. Oh no, wow, it's way before that. 78. Well, not way before that. Let's get some perspective here. But yeah, that late 70s, early 80s new wave sound for sure. So that's a good one. If you've not checked out Japan, it's a good listen. I really enjoy it. I enjoy a lot of that stuff now more so than maybe I would have in the past. And quite frankly, it's because a lot of it I just didn't even give a chance. That's the reality. So now we're off to K's, and I'm going to start off the K's with one that was presented to me. I've always liked these guys, but a good buddy of mine in the BC, a shout out to Aaron. You all know, well, most of you will know, and if you don't know, you should know. Aaron Musa Alamer, he sent me this as a VCLT, and it's Caius. I mean, I've got a couple of their stuff. I only had one other on vinyl, but Blues for the Red Sun, and those uninitiated, it's Joss Home from Queens of the Stone Age. Nick D'Oliveri, he also did he did a whole bunch of his own work. I did pick one up based on the suggestion from Aaron, and I really dig it. John Garcia and Brant Bjork, it is. So really good stuff. Kind of that almost that tuned down metal, sludge, doom, whatever you want to call it. Very much influenced by Black Sabbath. When I listen to this, that's often what comes to mind. Is they're the fathers of that sound to me, the grandfathers, whatever you will. But really good stuff. If you like that sound, I would highly recommend checking out Caius. And bringing some stuff back up here to represent in Canada again, and it's Kick-Axe Vices. Great early mid 80s heavy metal, hard rock, whatever you want to call it. I had this on cassette back in the day, and it also had a cover of Humble Pie's 30 Day in the Hole, which I really liked that song. It seemed to fit well in the list of tunes, but for whatever reason, when I grabbed the vinyl, it doesn't have that. And I don't know if it's just an issue of space on a vinyl. You are limited to the space you can put on there unless you compress the hell out of it. And in favor of losing the sound quality, something had to give. And so it's a cover song or something, but that was the case on this. This has still got the old hype sticker where you can win a Harley. And 929 special. But yeah, if you've not heard of these guys, this is this is a good listen, really good listen. Um, I think it's still, I still enjoy it today. There's parts of it that you could argue or maybe kind of dated or immature or whatever, but man, oh man, I sometimes get a little tired of that debate too. I mean, that's music. It's sometimes music we listen to is a byproduct of an era or the music scene that's happening at the time, and so I think you have to have that perspective when you're listening to something. It's not like when I listen to, the Stones' first album or the Beatles' first album, I'm critiquing it based on something I hear today. I mean, that's foolish, in my opinion. So, good album. If you've not heard it, another one that I would suggest checking out. So, last but certainly not least, speaking of one of those early rock bands, this is one of their later catalog, and again, the only one I have. But this would have come out around that time that I just alluded to, where I was playing music on my school noon hour radio station and helping my buddy out with his DJ band and his family. But yeah, it's the Kinks, State of Confusion. And those who are familiar with that era would certainly be familiar with these songs because they were all over the top 40. Come Dancing. Don't Forget to Dance. Those were the big ones. Ray Davies, produced this, and it's totally Kinks. At least the Kinks that I know. I can't say that I'm nearly as familiar with the early Kinks. I know it. I do have on a cassette. I have the greatest hits. I think it's 1 and 2 or something. But yeah, this is a good one. This was the one that came out in 1983, and around the time that I would have been still in school, right? So it was all over the airwaves. I guess that would have been played heavily on the radio around that time. But that's it. Like I say, combining 3 letters here to try and catch up a little bit. Maybe it's cheating, but I'm not the first to do it. But that doesn't necessarily make it, not cheating. It's just what I had to do to try and catch up. And so next up, I hope it'll probably be next week before I get another one. But at least that gets me further along. I know, like I say, my buddy Jason there, he was just doing the M's. I'm not even sure where they are. I watched Kim over at This Is Music do his. What was the last one I watched him do? I think the last one I watched him do was Jay. So I'm not even caught up in watching the other videos most have done. So if you've not jumped on this thread, I know there's dozens of people that have jumped on and are completely finished with it. They went through the entire alphabet within a week, but of course they do videos, it seems 3 or 4 times a day. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it. I had to get this one done. We're heading out, so I don't have a lot of time to sit and go through each letter and present. I first thought about doing the entire catalog that I have of Iron Maiden on vinyl, and that would be my eye. I was going to do the same with Judas Priest, but I don't have time to do that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, and I look forward to doing the next one. So until then, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Thanks for taking part in the little short videos I do. It's a lot of fun. It keeps me kind of involved, but if nothing else, that's all it is. I'm just a presence, to maintain a presence. Some people don't like the shorts. To each their own. It's all good. I mean, whatever floats your boat. I'm just doing it, like I say, because I do enjoy it. So that's all that matters. And I appreciate those who also enjoy it and take part and let me know their thoughts. They share their little stories of the song or artist or whatever. And that's what it's all about. It's a good hobby, a good pastime. And I could probably talk all day here when I get on that rant. So let's just stop right there. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon here at Twanger's Turntable. Cheers.